going to end that section, and we're going to talk about what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And if you got this, when you walk in, this paper is now what you need. He's going to come up, our other elder. So the next 3 years, this is from the elder board, what we thought of, what we prayed for, what we would like to see is happening. And then we're going to talk about it. And if you have any questions or suggestions that could help us out, please write on this. At the end of the service, someone in the back, you can put it over there. I think it's going to be Pastor Carter. He will have it. Please put it over there and let him know what's going on so we can continue to pray for what's going to happen next 3 years. So, Pastor Carter.
All right, thank you, Pastor Ro. So right stuff, it could be serious, like, how are we going to deal with the increasing number of people, or it could be things like, can you please serve chicken nugget for lunch? Okay, so any suggestions you have, you can write on there. But it's just a chance for you guys to express your opinions, your needs and your wants, and your desires, so that our elders and deacons know what's going on. Okay, before I start talking about this, and we're only going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes on this, okay? I'm just curious, how many of you here have been in this congregation, the English side, Living Hope, for more than 20 years? 20 years. More than 20 years. With Grace Chinese, it counts. All right, so my wife and Kathy, the only two here that have been more than 20 years. Sharon over there. How about you've been here for more than 10 years? 10 years, okay, a lot of the youth that are over 10 years old. Over 10, but not many. Okay, over 5, you've been here for more than 5 years. Okay, not a ton either, a couple. How about more than 1 year? How about less than 1 year? Okay. So the majority of you guys are a little bit over a year and a little bit less. So most of you are pretty new. So our desire is to talk about what's going on in the past for those that are new, and then talk about what's going to go on in the future. We haven't done this a ton because just honestly, our congregation have not been that large, so it's been easy to just kind of talk among ourselves. But as you look around and see that, God has really been blessing and using us to reach our community and others with the gospel, just low-key informal communication and organic structures aren't really going to cut it anymore. And so what you'll see later as I start talking about it is what are some of the intentional things that we're going to try to put in place to look towards the next 3 years. I don't have the clicker, so can someone click the next slide for me? Okay, this is our vision and mission. Thank you. Don't worry about reading it, because if you go up to any of our deacons and elders and ask them, what is our vision and mission? We could not recite it out to you, okay? So the reason is because this vision and mission was a first attempt at thinking about what should this group here be visioning? What should this group here, what is their mission for existing here? Right, so this was crafted, I think, about 3 years ago, and what you'll see is the one that's kind of white out. I don't think you can see it, but it says a diverse expression of the family of God, okay, and then at the bottom, mission to make disciples of all peoples. So you'll see diverse and all peoples kind of highlighted out, and that was really the gist for why we created this draft vision and mission that we've probably only seen once or twice over the last couple of years. The reason we wanted to draft this out is to distinguish the vision and mission of this group in contrast to what this church was originally built for. So Grace Chinese Baptist Church of Richmond, and it should not be a shocker that Grace Chinese Baptist, their focus is on bringing those with Chinese heritage to know Jesus and be a disciple, right? So that's the focus for the longest time. I think the Chinese church, Grace Chinese, has been in existence for about 20 years. So for a good chunk of that time, that was the focus, all right? Just outreach to Chinese people, outreach to second-gen Asian American Chinese, and that's all we've been focusing on. But I would say about 5 to 7 years ago, God really challenged the English ministry of Grace Chinese and say, is that what God has? And is that the challenge for why the English ministry exists in the Chinese church? And the answer is no. So as a congregation, we did not see that as the only thing that we're doing. And so we started having discussions either at the leadership level or with church members of saying, why do we exist? How does God want to use us? And so that's why you see those words, diversity, all people, all nation, really became a theme for the direction in which we wanted to start moving forward. That's how Living Hope Church RVA was born. So this explains a little bit, all right? I did really bad with the color choices, guys. I'm like, I can't even read this. But if you could read this, and you're a teenager with excellent eyesight, the story for the last 3 years of this church, of the Living Hope Church RVA, were that we were just focused on expanding into a new identity to reach new people in new ways, right? So broadening and expanding beyond people in Richmond that were of Chinese heritage. So if you see a little bit of the history, and this circle with the ripples going out, I think it's a great image for us to think about the history of this church. Back in 2000, this church, Grace Chinese Baptist, was established to reach the first generation Chinese immigrants. And then in 2008, we had a lot of youth, and so then our focus became focused on the second generation Chinese American youth. So we had youth groups, right? A lot of our focus was how do we build out these youth that these Chinese people keep having. And so we had to deal with the expanding families of the Chinese congregation, right? They just had a bunch of kids, and we're like, what do we do with these kids? So we started having children ministry and youth ministries. And in 2020, it's really the first time when we witnessed this side of the congregation becoming more multi-ethnic. So if you look around, it's not all Chinese people, right? There's people with Korean heritage, with Filipino heritage. We got some Vietnamese heritage, non-Asians, so it's becoming more and more multi-ethnic and also multi-generational. If you look around, it's not all young people. It runs the gamut, right, Jeff? I was just picking on you. Okay, so that gets us to Living Hope Church. Do you all remember when we moved into this side of the building? Yes, February 11th, Elizabeth got it, because it's the passcode for the AV. But it is no longer there, so don't use that. Anyway, if you think about it, it's right around Valentine's Day, right? Last year when we moved in. So it's been about a year. And so through this year, a lot of it has just been, how do we wrestle through this new identity, right? So those are the questions that we've been thinking about and working towards for this whole year. It's how can we capitalize on this new identity? How can we reach people of all nations? How can we reach all peoples? How can we diversify the people that we can go out towards and share the gospel with? The second question is, what kind of new ways, new places, new tools can we explore? And so you'll see a lot of different activities and events that we've been venturing out beyond the Chinese sort of community so that we can reach more people with the gospel. Then who are our new target demographic? How can we find and reach them? Where are the people that we're trying to reach with the gospel? How can we use the new building to maximize that impact? And so we've been trying to use this new facility here, really awesome, for different things. I know PD has used it for a lot of college events that are beyond just the Richmond church. And so how do we use this so that we can bless our community and also put the name of Living Hope Church out there so that we can reach more people? And finally, how can we honor the Asian heritage and continue to partnership? So this will be some of the concerns on the Chinese side is as we, Living Hope Church RVA, continue to broaden and expand and move beyond people of Chinese heritage, how can we continue to partner with the Chinese side? You know, what kind of ministry should we collaborate on? How can our leaders be in sync so that we're not spinning off and doing our own thing, but we're still one church, doing ministries differently to different people, but we share resources and things like that, okay? So that's where we are the last 3 years, and it's been very exciting. If you've been here for the last year since we moved into this side, a lot have happened. Numbers-wise, for sure, you guys just saw it, a lot of less than a year or barely past a year. So God's really working in this Living Hope Church RVA. So where are we going in the next 3 years? there's been a lot of kind of questions, very specific ones, like, are we going to start a second service because this room here is so small and packed? Are we going to go church planned? What are we going to do with training our leaders? Because now we have a lot of leaders. Are we going to do more visitation? So there's a lot of questions that have been bubbled up to the leadership that we're kind of praying through. And so this slide really is to let you know that we've heard, we're thinking through it, and we're trying to put together structures so that we can support all these needs. But the next 3 years in this slide is really an invitation for you to come aboard and join us. Okay, don't just depend on the people that coordinate or are visible, but all of us should be playing a part. So these are the 4 areas, the 4 key ministry areas that we're gonna focus in the next 3 years to discover and equip our people. So the focus really is in, hey, we have these 4 things, we need people to go fill them. Okay, the message here is that each of you have different gifting. So look at this list and ask, where has God gifted you and which area do you want to go serve in? So we're not going to force you into something that has a need. We want you to use the gift that God has gifted you with to serve people, okay? Later, our new deacons, so Joe and Stephen and Yuqing, they're going to come up and talk a little bit about how they fit into this, but I'm going to give a big picture, okay? So these are the 4 categories that we know we want to focus on and build leadership teams around and build kind of framework and structures, be more intentional in having training, those kind of things. So for worship, we would love to have a worship leadership team. So this team would focus on things like the music, Sunday worship, right? They can focus on AV team. They'll focus on things that are worship related, like prayer, spiritual disciplines, and also giving and offering. So those are things that this group of people would be focusing on. The second one is education. So we also want to have a leadership team that can oversee this or work with people that want to serve in this area. Education will be discipleship. The next one will be marriage and family. I was in a course at Southeastern this past week. I just got back yesterday, actually. And a lot of the conversation there, the pastors, we kind of got down a rabbit hole, was around marriage and family, because their churches were having a lot of challenges, right? They want to build healthy families, healthy marriages, but the reality is we're all broken. Even the pastors, I would like half the class, half the pastors also go to counseling. Like they and their wife go to counseling every quarter because they found that to be a healthy practice for them to quarterly reflect on their marriage and work on it. So it was just awesome for me to just hear this, and it made me have this one desire to see healthy families in our church. So we want to focus on education, whether that's going for conferences, doing classes together, having small groups that focus on these topics. We also want to do curricular. One of the things you notice is folks are asking, hey, what are you teaching? What does each class teach? How are teachers getting trained? What kind of curricular they use? Honestly, the question is, whatever the leader decides, right? We trust them to pick their curricular, but we also want to have a curricular that kind of runs through from like the toddler class up to senior adults and have like a common theme so that as folks are moving through different ages, they learn about scripture differently and practice it differently. So we want something that's more intentional. Continued education, you've seen a ton of people from IMB and Southeastern come. They're talking about continuing education with the seminaries, things like that. We want you to be involved in those things because we recognize that as a local church, we don't have those capacity or expertise to be able to teach continuing education on deeper theological things. So we want to partner with other organizations. And finally, training. The other one is fellowship. We want to have, everybody loves fellowship, right? That's one of the big reasons why we came to the church. In fact, Pastor Rowe's Sunday school message today was about the missional community. So how can we as a community grow together in relationship with each other and then bring that out of the church so that others may see God working in this community. So we want to have a team that can kind of work through this. This fellowship kind of category would also be involved in membership, knowing who's a member, who isn't, and how to encourage folks in understanding what membership means. Small groups, what's the health of the small groups? How are the leaders doing? How can we encourage them? How can we provide resources? Multiplications, okay, how do we multiply small groups? How do we train? And then how do we have inter and intra fellowship? This means how would all the different small groups here have intra-fellowship? I think that's how you use it. And then how can the English and the Chinese have inter-fellowship? Okay. And finally, mission. It's we want to have a team. We want to focus on global and local missions. We want to do more community engagement, be very intentional about that. And then that's another one, which is a campus church plan. So at some point, God willing, we want to start planting beyond just the Guzman location. So how do we plant churches in areas that either don't have a lot of access to the gospel, or don't have churches there, or people in this congregation have special skill sets and gifting that can benefit that community? So we church plant in that area to bring the gospel there. And then hospitality, new people coming all the time. How do we make sure they feel welcome? And finally, digital engagement. It should not be a surprise. Churches these days are more and more into digital engagement, in engaging people with the gospel. You guys saw it and heard about it when the Olympic mission team shared their testimony, right? When they went to Paris to work with IMB teams there, they used digital engagement. So as people are responding to the gospel, they go online and they interact with digital people in US churches that can help answer their questions. And then the thing running along the bottom are I don't know where that came from, are cross partnerships with the Chinese congregation. So things like children, youth, college, finance, general affairs, there's things that we just share and we have to just kind of collaborate on. And so look at this, kind of mull on it and meditate on it. Maybe next week or the week after, we'll hand out some handouts for you to kind of check where are the areas you want to serve in. But that's the plan. I think the bottom line is we recognize that there's a need for more deliberate structures. And so we're going to put people in place to kind of lead these things. And so the big one I also want to mention is, for the longest time on the English side, we've only had one English deacon. And going into 2025 is the first time we've had more than one. Right, so we have 3, and you're going to hear from them. So Pastor O.